interested to know how many of you are going through something today. I'm not talking about COVID-19 either. I mean, COVID-19, we've all been through this. Hello? Just pull your mask down and smile at me if you agree that it's been a challenge. What have we learned through COVID-19? What have we learned through all this? That the healthcare system can't always save us, right? We've learned that our economy can fall at an invisible virus. I've learned my teachers are right about my kids. It's been a challenge. And all the parents said, I told you I started off, when all this started, I was the principal. I had it. I was going to be the enforcer. I was going to make sure everything was done. And after I was finally demoted to the lunchroom lady of my last job in the school, I finally gave it up. But there's a part of our journey where I think as we mature, we understand that nothing happens to me without God's permission. Nothing. And it's easy for us to explain the good things. We celebrate the good things. We sing and dance and clap and say, bless the Lord. But when those tough times, when those wilderness experiences come in our life, that's where it gets a little shaky. And I just asked this question, are you in a wilderness today? Have you been through a wilderness this year? And again, I kind of make fun of the COVID stuff. It's not funny at all. But that is what everybody went through. That doesn't include the things that you were already going through in your life. For some of you, that just made things even more complicated to try to manage some things you were dealing with. But he says here that immediately the Spirit, and think about this, when Jesus came out of the water, we talked about this last week, and he has this great spiritual moment. How many of you have had great spiritual moments in your life? Moments you can look back and say, oh, God moved here in all this, or maybe you stepped out and tried to change your life and do things for God, and then all of a sudden the moment you did, it's like the enemy was standing right there waiting on you. Maybe you said, I'm gonna tithe and pay my tithes or support a missionary, and about the time you start to give good, what's happening? The money gets a little funny. Anybody know what I'm talking about? Then you say, man, did God really want me to do this? So Jesus has the Spirit to drive him into the wilderness. And this is what I believe this is. In 1 Corinthians, we see that Paul made a statement that when Moses came out of Egypt, I've mentioned this to you before, that they were baptized into Moses at the Red Sea. Real simple meaning was this. The nation of Israel came out as slaves, walked through the sea, and when they came on the other side, they were sons. Slaves, freed, sons. But the moment they came through the west side of the Red Sea, guess what they entered? The wilderness. Jesus comes from Nazareth, goes into the water, comes out the sun, and guess where he goes next? To the wilderness. I would say that anyone who may have come to the altar last week may have left and walked into the wilderness. Sorry, I forgot to tell you that might happen last week. But there's a purpose in the wilderness. There's a purpose. Listen to me. There's a purpose for what you're going through today. There's a purpose. And there is a purpose that the enemy has in your life. We're going to look at what he does, and he tries to mess with your mind. Mess with your head, mess with your heart, get you off track, keep you off track. Immediately the Spirit drove him into the wilderness, verse 13, and he was there in the wilderness 40 days, tempted by Satan, and was with the wild beast, and the angels ministered to him. Now, this is Mark's account. We're going to have to turn over to Matthew to really see inside the story of what that was like. But man, when you're in the wilderness, how many of you have ever been out here to the levees out there on the Everglades? Anybody ever been out there on those dirt roads and seen those wild beasts that are out there? All the crazy animals that are right in our backyard here in South Florida. Alligators, snakes, possum. What else do we have around here? All that stuff, right? If you're lucky, you might find one of those big wild cats out there in the Everglades. That would be if you're lucky. But that's what the Bible says, that Jesus was alone with animals, beasts, and Satan. Sounds like work, don't it? Sounds like your job if you're lucky. I hope that's not you. Matthew 4 is where we're going to look in deeper into this story. And here he says it again, and I want to encourage someone today to let you know that just because you're in a hard place doesn't mean God's not with you. Just because you've gone through something doesn't mean God didn't bring you to it. And let me say this, it may not turn out the way you want it to, but that doesn't mean it's not from God. See, if He brings you to it, He'll bring you through it. He is the Alpha and the Omega, the beginning and the end. He writes the beginning and the end. He knows all things in between. And He knows what He's doing in your life as you journey through. Then Jesus was led by the Spirit, up by the Spirit, into the wilderness to be tempted by the devil. And when He had fasted 40 days and 40 nights, afterwards, He was hungry. You believe that? Some of y'all are hungry right now and you ate breakfast. And you just want me to hurry up so you can go eat lunch. 40 days of fasting. I mean, you know, He's going to be hungry, right? I mean, the Bible lets us know why He says this in verse number 3. Now, when the tempter came to Him, He said, if you are the Son of God, command these stones to become bread. Verse 4. But He answered and said, it is written, man shall not live by bread alone, but every word that proceeds from the mouth of God. Then the devil took Him up into the holy city and set Him on the pinnacle of the temple and said, if you are the Son of God, throw yourself down, for it is written, He shall give angels charge over you, and their hands shall bear you up, lest you dash your foot against a stone. Jesus said, it is written again, you shall not tempt the Lord your God.